Utie oha extra punk no. Needs FM.
And what ye? Zumatan Tano and was Ashas, Ebisusu Prince Debbie, Adakabri, you deserve to say it. This is the kind of balance we need to draw. What are your thoughts?
Actually, the manager, I heard Ursula's message to the public, but I didn't hear on he and the manager's interaction. If you can maybe summarize that for me, but I heard her clearly talking to the public.
Okay. The first direct question to the manager was that having stepped forward, and or can't say, are you the manager? Manager, no, empty manager, no way. And the gentleman stepped forward and or to me was and or pointing to the persons say, are they observing social distancing? Then the manager more or less rabbled, saying, say, you providing kunyan, you providing tending, we appear, say, you hunu dear a war abontia. So you allow them to do that? Let's just say, more or less, touting, say, MTN should be responsible for the conduct of the intending users of their facility outside of the MTN premises.
Okay, so let me tell you what I think. I actually thought that her message to the public was a good message. I don't know, the tone could have been better, but the message to the people gathered outside was a good message. Regardless of the tone, which I couldn't see, and I thought he could have lowered her voice a little bit and be more educational rather than it almost like it seemed like he was a headmistress talking down to her students. So her tone could have been better. As far as talking to the manager, hello.
Yetiopa doc.
As far as talking to the manager, I think that maybe he could have done it privately first, because it's better if you do it that way. The broader question is what the rules of social distancing and the enforcement mechanisms are. I don't know necessarily that an organization is responsible for social distancing of people who are outside this premises. When they get inside the premises, yes, the organization should do something to help. But even then, sometimes based on the rules that operate in that area, that might be challenged. And it is very interesting because here in the U.S., people have actually gone to court, not just against private organizations, but against their own government about social distancing. There have been demonstrations in front of governor's offices. For example, in Michigan, part of their social distancing rules said you couldn't even mow your own lawn. And people were saying the governor has no power to do that. So they protested, and some people are taking them to court. And the Supreme Court is going to hear a case regarding some of those things in the next few days. And it depends on the rules as they were promulgated. It depends on education, and it also depends on the sanctions. So, in effect, you can't make the sanctions on the fly. They have to be publicized in advance, and they have to be applied judiciously. And for example, I also think that now that we're talking about that, we are slipping into Corona. I think that one of the things that the government can do, for example, is to provide people who can't afford it with masks. Because if we prepare to give people food, which are a little bit tangential to coronavirus, then we should be able to provide them with masks. So I think that Ursula's message to the public was okay, but I have always had problems with how she communicates. Even when she has a good message, she could deliver it.
Oh, so you are not looking at you are not looking at this particular one on its own merit. You are recalling painstakingly years gone by what your view of her is about.
Absolutely. I think she's intelligent. She's interesting to listen to, but her manners and her tone could be better.
Right. Nti ninyina emuono Arthur Kwabena Kennedy MD. You live in the United States of America. Na share initial assessments of the president of the US and the conduct of the government towards COVID-19, the conduct of various mayors, governors towards COVID-19. You must have read about Germany, must have read about Japan, must have read about United Kingdom, Spain, Italy, and must have read and listened a lot about Ghana. What are your initial thoughts as to how various governments reacted initially to the COVID-19? Hello? Quite unfortunate. Yalusu after Kobina Kennedy. We make an effort to get back to him. Madi, minkenka messages kakra. Facebook Live for no. Kofi Amwan ekasei. Asi arakabre. You have not, also you haven't learned your lesson. Before election 2016, you were on the verge of losing your job from despite because you and your father decided to tarnish the image of Nana Akufo-Addo, making sure he lose the election. We know you are doing NDC work. You hate MPP and Nanado. You have become a stooge for NDC. A lot of people have been studying you. Right, after Kennedy will come back. Now, every single messenger. Right, after Kennedy, MD, you was say I can be him. Right, now you say, would you to US and into your view of the US government's initial reaction, US governors and mayors in various cities and states, their reaction initially. You must have read about Germany, must have read about France, must have read about Spain, must have read about Italy, must have read about Japan, must have read about even China, and then comparative analysis with your own home government of Ghana. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a big topic. I think without doubt, the countries that get A in my books are in Asia and all pretty close to China. I think I'm going to give Taiwan, Singapore, and South Korea very high marks. I think probably Taiwan followed very closely by the other two. They live very close to China, population of about 23 million, and yet right now they have a little over 400 cases and then about 6 deaths. Excellent job from Taiwan, particularly when they did all this over the opposition of the World Health Organization that refused to help them. I think South Korea's significant contribution was the drive-through testing. That was a very good innovation. I think Singapore's own was the superb contact tracing. Somebody said that they came to her house in Singapore and they told us that 5 days earlier she spent 30 minutes in a taxi and somebody in that taxi was infected because they used cell phone records to figure out all those who were in that taxi. So Singapore, excellent job. And then Taiwan, very good. In Europe, the best country in terms of the response has been Germany. I think they were very good. I think the WHO was bad in how they reacted. I think that they put politics ahead of science and medicine, which was unfortunate. Now let me come to United States. I think that actually the U.S. response has been good. The problem is that, unfortunately, there is too much politics and partisanship in the U.S. I think Trump has not been helped by how he talks, but in terms of decision making, he's actually been quite good. He closed, for example, travel from China against the advice of all his experts. That turned out to be a very good move. He later extended it to Europe. That was good. He basically has followed the advice of his experts every step of the way. But while he's doing that in action, he has been undermining his own message by his tone and sometimes criticizing people when he doesn't need to. As far as the governors are concerned, a lot of people hear about the governor of New York because the media is focusing on him. But actually, so far, I think that the governor who has handled this best is probably the governor of Florida. And in the ambassador, and by the way, Trump's coronavirus task force was first class, a very good task force. They have very good experts and very balanced. The governor of Florida has handled it very well, but from the media, you wouldn't know. You have to read underlying documents. For example, the coronavirus task force expert, Ambassador Deborah Best, has said that the best website on the coronavirus is that of Florida. And then they talk about Florida reopening up, and people say, how can they do that? Florida actually has more people than New York. It has more elderly people, and yet they have far less deaths. And it's because they focus aggressively on protecting nursing homes. While New York, for example, was sending nursing home patients who had recovered back to the same nursing homes, which was awful. So on balance, they have been good. In addition to that, I think Georgia was a little shaky. Otherwise, most other places in the U.S., including my state, the incidences have been low. The big incidences have been New York, New Jersey, and Washington and California, where it's started. And by the way, the governor of California too has done a good job.
Now, Ghana, what are the salient areas Obe mentioned?
Okay. As far as Ghana is concerned, I felt, and I'm on record, I sent videos middle of February and March and all that, because the middle of February, I was calling for us to ban travel to and from China. But of course, the WHO was against us, so nobody was listening. I think that Ghana's lockdown, while well intentioned, in my view, was always going to be impractical. The reason why it was going to be impractical is that I think lockdowns are really tools of middle class society. Ghana has about 60% of our people living in compound houses. And I don't know about I think you know compound house. I grew up in one, so I know them very well. You have about
multi-tenant property.
Sometimes 40 people, 30 people who live in a house. There's no toilet in the house, so you all go to public toilet. You all go out to go get water. So, I mean, the public toilet itself is a place where a lot of people meet. Where they go get water is a places where people meet. When they go out to get food, a lot of people meet there. And see, while it was well intentioned, I always thought it was going to be very, very difficult to enforce. And I think that when they opened up, it wasn't because our curve had flattened, because I didn't see Ghana's curve. And we had not tested enough to make our curve meaningful. So I think that they were bowing to reality. I think that Ghana's quarantine of people coming through the airport was very good. I wish they had started it earlier, but it was very good. The contact tracing was very good too. I also think that they could have done better with the isolation. For example, I learned that somebody who was isolated in Kumasi was living in a compound house. I think the government should have put people isolated, which means people who have the disease. Quarantine is those who we suspect that they don't know whether they have the disease. Isolation is people who have the disease. I think that the government should have found a place to keep people who needed isolation and lived in compound houses. I also didn't see the logic, for example, of not including a place like Sekendi Takoradi in the lockdown. I think that at this stage, one of the things that we can do, the mask before you enter public buildings is a very good idea. I think that contact tracing, as they are doing, it's a good idea. I think that we should do antibody testing. And the antibody testing will tell us the incidence of the disease rather than just the positive rate of what we are testing. And for the antibody testing, you can, for example, do 3,000 in Accra, 2,000 in Kumasi, maybe 1,000 in Kaswa. That tells you the percentage, and these are random samples. They tell you the percentage of your population who have the disease. For example, when California did that, they found a positivity rate of 5 to 6%. New York had 20% in the New York City, about 14% in places like Long Island. And those are random samples. And the US going forward is one of the things they are going to do, and they've set up a surveillance system. And they are going to focus that on minorities, on the elderly, and on Native American population. So in Ghana, we could do that. And that will tell us how we are doing going forward. The other problem we have, together with the rest of Africa, is the absence of health infrastructure, which probably is why the president promised to build 88 hospitals in a year. All of sub-Saharan Africa has less than 2,000 ventilators outside of South Africa. That is too few. And it is really nerve-wracking that there are actually 10 African countries that don't have a ventilator at all. Ghana has about 200. But while that is better than most other African countries, I know, for example, that Komfo-Anokye's teaching hospital has 15 ventilators. Most days, about 8 to 10 are operational. So that should give you some idea.
Three more questions. Na fe mamu kwa wadwuma. Na three more questions. No. One is to do with the COVID-19 comparative analysis, and the other is to do with, once again, the media. One relating to multimedia, and the other relating to Despite Group. So, first of the three, COVID-19, dear no. What should say UK was it over 65 of war? Omanyina womo enhye dem na ma omunsi abontene. When your resignation crap from the operational technical team on the basis of a visit from somebody from the opposite sex. Na what the tutum say pressure in Germany, Angela Merkel to relax. Japan quite ahead or relax about 2 weeks ago. And then Spain opposition are now demanding say one relax here. The Omicron Ediano. Nothing know what the Aba Ghana has say. Sunday 2-1 bet. The President of the Republic will go the Japanese, will go the German, will go the Spanish angle and relax further. What are your thoughts?
I think that the calls for relaxation were what one would expect, because, I mean, in addition to reading about the medicine and the science, I'm also reading about the economics of it. So I think the thing has always been how to balance public health with economics, because obviously, as people stay at home, they can't work. And in the US, for example, unemployment numbers are going up steeply. A lot of people are losing their jobs, and people are saying that, yeah, we understand that you want to protect us from COVID, but if I can't feed my family, if I can't pay my bills, then what do I do? And of course, as somebody said, poverty itself can kill you. You know, you've gotten to where even hospitals can't do routine procedures because either people are afraid to go out or they close down because of fears about the COVID. So you need to reopen up the economy. The question is how you do it safely. There are people who are saying that, in actual fact, the best way to get over the virus is to develop herd immunity, short of a vaccine. And herd immunity is when you have about 60 to 70% of your population having the disease already. Then you have herd immunity. And see, I think the opening is reasonable, but life as we knew it is not going to return. I think that for a long time, people are going to be in public with masks all the time. Maybe for the next at least year, we're going to play soccer matches without fans in the stadium. Those kinds of things. And then, of course, the thing is to have strong surveillance so that whenever the disease seems to be rising again, then you can jump on it quickly. The other thing is to heed the lessons of the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, which had a second wave and even a smaller third wave, so that we know that even if this is going down, it can always come back. So we need strong surveillance systems in place. I also think that looking at Ghana economically, I don't agree with the finance minister that it will contract our economy by 1%. It will probably be bigger because the global economy is going to go down by about 5%, and that is even conservative. So it will affect us more. I think we should reduce the price of petrol. Around the world, the price of petrol is at rock bottom. So it shouldn't take much for the government of Ghana to reduce the price of petrol. I think we should give vouchers to trotro and taxi operators so that in addition to the general reduction, the burdens on the poor will be less. I think that we should continue supporting people with food distribution, not through political parties, but through MMDCs and church.
Right. The two final questions, but
Utie Oha Exi Ponkno Needs FM.